In its early access state, No Rest for the Wicked is already full of surprises. Mostly those are great, like how one moment I found myself marveling at its slow and precise combat, and the next, I found myself decorating my home like I was in an M-rated Animal Crossing. On the flip side, although it's certainly to be expected from a game that's clearly labeled as unfinished, there were also some not-so-fun surprises. I've seen various technical issues, the loot and inventory management system needs some serious tweaking, and there are some levels that can be a headache to navigate from this perspective. There's nothing there that feels unsolvable though, and all of those problems are eclipsed by just how exciting and special this genre-blending pioneer felt throughout my 30+ hours with the content that's already available. The setting doesn't rock the boat too much. You play as a magically imbued warrior and generic chosen one, sworn to fight back an ancient plague.
I thought you'd be taller.
It seems to be a pretty serious problem for folks, since they absolutely cannot stop transforming into Lovecraftian horrors at every opportunity. After arriving in the land of Sakura, you immediately set to the task of helping these poor souls out by slaughtering all manner of ghoulish feral wildlife, infected humans, and murderous bandits, all while suspiciously side-eyeing the zealous militant church. Calling it now, these guys will almost definitely be the bad guys in the back half of the campaign.
I promise we will cleanse the island of this wickedness. Our new king's faith in the church is well placed.
Sakura's not exactly a peachy world to explore, but the compelling characters and their top-notch voice performances gel with depressing vibes of a beautiful world gone terribly wrong. Both are exceedingly well done, and quickly become extremely alluring reasons to press on through each harrowing area and lethal boss.
Your brother, the king, has passed.
As of now, this story is cut short just as things are getting interesting around 10 hours in, so time will tell if it delivers on that front. So far though, it's off to a very strong start.
Where was the touch when our people were sick and starving?
It definitely helps that No Rest for the Wicked is quite easy on the eyes at nearly every moment, owing to its painterly art style, expressive and memorable characters, and gobsmackingly beautiful foliage. Check out the stamens and pistils on those babies. I will say though, that at first glance the bizarre humans can be a bit off-putting, especially when you jump into the character creator and see this weird dude as the default. Yikes. But once I hopped into the world and saw how it fit in with the stylized art, I was quickly put at ease with how I looked from a bird's eye view. Just as quickly, combat sets itself apart as much as the art style. This divergent action RPG takes the brisk skirmishes we're used to from Diablo or Path of Exile and replaces them with steady, methodical, and wonderfully deadly swordplay against small numbers of opponents. Instead of running around as a god of the battlefield, you're a squishy adventurer who will have to master dodge rolls, perfect parries, and the rare combat ability here and there to scrape by, which makes battles much more challenging and demanding of your full attention. For someone who's delved all of Diablo 4's dungeons already, that's a lot more engaging than mindlessly plowing through armies with ease. Not that there's anything wrong with mindlessly plowing. Exploring the early access portion of Sakura's map makes for an extremely enjoyable time, whether you're wading into rotting sewers filled with bandits, or navigating an abandoned quarry where one false step will send you plummeting to your death. Oh, son of a... Anyway, there's an impressive number of enemy types packed into the small number of areas currently available. Lots of secrets to discover and hidden loot to claim, and a surprising amount of things to climb, leap to, or precariously balance across that you don't usually see a lot of in games with an isometric perspective. The only issue is that because you can't move the camera as you explore, sometimes the fixed view makes it a little hard to tell what can be climbed on, or to understand the exact dimensions of any given narrow walkway you're maneuvering through. That caused me to accidentally leap to my death on more than one occasion. The RPG mechanics are similarly inspired, allowing for a ton of customization without locking you into a specific subclass or role that dictates your playstyle, at least not for a good while. Since your build is largely determined by the weapons and armor you bring into battle, each of which comes with their own attacks, abilities, and stats, you get a nice layer of RPG mechanics to mess around with however you like. In one stretch, I played as a lightly armored assassin with dual daggers that applied an elemental burn. Later, I traded them in for a katana and a shield that healed me as I blocked attacks. The build crafting is quite in-depth, and there are already so many combinations I had a hard time picking any one and running with it. That's a good problem to have. Unfortunately, which options are available are limited by how the RNG gods treat you, since you won't always get a decent weapon that aligns with how you want to play. Even more frustrating, you might find a weapon you really like, but not have the right stats to wield it. Since there's currently no way to respec, you'll eventually lock yourself into a certain kind of loadout playstyle and find all other loot basically useless. Maybe that won't be as big of a drag once they add co-op, but right now, there's no one to hand an item off to. No Rest for the Wicked also falls prey to one of my biggest action RPG pet peeves, a small inventory that constantly needs to be managed. Since there are tons of different materials needed to level up, enchant, and craft weapons, you're constantly being told to store up stuff you absolutely don't have room to carry, which creates an infuriating dilemma.
You've defended this city. Now, you may make it your home.
When you aren't fighting diseased abominations and stuffing baubles into your cute little fanny pack-sized inventory, you'll find yourself in the cozy town of Sacrament. Here, the goal surprisingly shifts to rebuilding the place, as if you suddenly stepped into a Stardew Valley for goth kids. By bringing back materials to invest in the refurbishing of various local establishments and infrastructure, you can turn your town into a veritable oasis of friendly vendors and scenic views.
Is she not a tavern to make you drop to your knees and weep?
From a warm tavern and diner you can build near the entrance, to an elevator in the center that can quickly ferry you from Lowtown to the fancy upper level and back again. You can even purchase property for yourself, then spend way too much time decorating it, and store the loot you don't have room to carry. It's very weird to find any of this stuff in such a dark, action-packed crusade, but resting here ironically ended up being one of my favorite aspects of No Rest for the Wicked.
Mr. Snyder, Mr. Spider on a scone, now it's inside her.
Once you beat the campaign, you'll unlock a roguelike endgame activity that pits you against a dungeon filled with powerful enemies and enormous amounts of loot. It's a lot of fun and makes the early access version feel much more substantial. Unfortunately, every run at this mode requires a consumable that you have to grind to earn, and because you'll likely be using lots of healing items during runs, you'll more than likely have to stop whatever you're doing to grind out areas you've already explored to stock up. It's a real drag on the pace that healing items don't replenish when you die. Between that and juggling my inventory, I found myself spending an awful lot of time staring at menus instead of practicing my perfect parry or fine-tuning my feng shui. Another caveat is that, while it might be unsurprising for an early access game, No Rest for the Wicked has performance and tech issues to iron out. The frame rate is known to dip no matter how powerful your PC. Your character can get stuck in the side of a cliff until you spend some time dodge rolling to break free. Also, one time this happened. Whoops. But again, these are the sort of things one would expect to encounter in early access, and then watch as they're ironed out as development continues. And none of them were such a big deal that I wanted to stop and play something else. No Rest for the Wicked is a compelling and unique action RPG that blends a whole bunch of great genre ideas into one promising package, even though its incompleteness can be felt throughout the abridged early access version story.
And none of us can say what tomorrow will bring.
With lots of loot and inventory shortcomings, some technical issues, and isometric camera angles that can take some getting used to, there's still plenty to tweak in the months of development to come before 1.0. I, for one, hope they'll improve inventory management and add a respec option for starters. But even in this early state, I've had an absolute blast with the precise and challenging combat, memorable exploration and art, voice acting, and characters that make me really eager to see more of the story, and further explore the high-risk, high-reward roguelike mode. With so much going for it, I could easily see this becoming a landmark game for action RPGs, and that potential is exciting. For more, check out our review of Another Crab's Treasure and Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. And for everything else, stick with IGN.